If you don't know how to handle being interrupted when you speak, or how to stop it from happening in the first place, it does something terrible to your self-esteem. And you see, when I was a teenager, I used to be extremely soft-spoken and a massive pushover. I was known at my school as the nice guy, but not the nice guy stereotype that tricks girls into liking him. I was just genuinely an overly nice guy. And while this got me a lot of friends, whenever I would speak, I would get interrupted a lot, and I never knew how to actually handle it. So I would just let it go, even if I had something that I thought was really interesting to say. And this happened so much, and it completely destroyed my self-esteem because it created a feedback loop where, because my self-esteem was down, I didn't actually feel like the things that I was saying was important, and it would just make people disrespect me even more. And since then, through years of practice and experience and self-development, I've finally been able to level up my speaking skills to the point where that doesn't happen anymore, and if it does, I know how to handle it. And in this video, I'm going to go over the reasons why younger me struggled with this and why you probably struggle with this, and give you a game plan and how you can actually handle it when it does happen and how you can stop it from happening in the first place. So in order to understand how to stop people from interrupting you and to prevent it from happening in the first place, you need to understand why people even interrupt you to begin with. Because a lot of the time when people interrupt you, they're not actually doing it out of malice. They're just doing it because they have bad social awareness. Sometimes you'll have people who just really, really like talking. And because of that, it ends up being a thing where they just end up interrupting you because they really, really want to get out what it is that they're going to say, and they can't wait for you to stop talking. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm guilty of this too. This does happen sometimes. It happens to everybody. And it's not something that you should take personally when it happens. Now, when interruption becomes an issue when you're speaking is when it's a repeated issue. When this is something that isn't happening with one specific person that just really likes to talk, it happens with them, the people that you spoke to a couple of days ago, the people in your school, the people in your work, over and over and over again. When it's a repeated issue, that's when you know that you have something that's a little bit more of an issue than just one person's minor mistake. You see, interruption when speaking, most of the time, isn't an external issue with the people that you're speaking to. A lot of the time, it's actually an internal issue when it comes to your own self-image and the way that you see yourself relative to the people around you. Because when you see yourself as less than the people around you, they're gonna end up treating you as if you're less than. Because I used to struggle with this when I was a lot younger, and I used to be a very humble person, and I still am. There's nothing wrong with being humble, but I wasn't doing it in a way that was healthy. I was doing it in a way that placed me below other people, in a way that actually caused more harm than good to my self-image and to them too. You see, when you're speaking to someone, where do you think the dynamic should be? So say this hand is me or you, and this hand is the person that I or you were speaking to. Should it be like this, where you're above the other person? Should it be like this, where you're equal? Or should it be like this, where you're below the other person? I'm pretty sure most of you would say here. If you said here, it's okay. Anyway, if you said this is where it should be. But when you see yourself as below the other person, it makes the dynamic really weird. Because yes, this person might be more likely to be friends with you. Maybe they might like you even more. But they're going to look down on you. And when people look down on you, you're essentially giving them the invitation to not respect what you're saying and to just interrupt and butt in at any single time that they see fit. And this is an issue that's so common, especially among people that tend to be a little bit more introverted or shy, or at least in the traditional sense of what an introvert is, because it's not something that you're actively thinking. You're not actively thinking, oh yeah, this person is above me. No one would think that, or at least most people don't think that, unless you're speaking to like a boss or some higher up or some celebrity or something like that, right? Most of the time, this issue happens because we don't have good self-esteem and we don't have a healthy self-image. And when you don't have a healthy self-image, people around you and the people that you speak to will automatically seem as if they're higher than you without even having you actually think that consciously. So think about this. Why exactly are you placing these people above you? Why is your self-image not equal to the image that you have of other people? And a lot of the time, it's because of the way that you see yourself. And yes, that is what self-image is, but it's the thoughts that you have about your identity. I've talked about this a lot, where introverts see themselves as shy, as unconfident, as bad at speaking, just for the sole fact that they're introverts. Being the kind of person that enjoys solitude and enjoys getting energy from their inside rather than getting it from external stimulation doesn't mean anything for your communication and how good you are at speaking. Yes, if you spend a lot of time inside, yes, that might mean that you have less social interaction, so you might be a little bit more awkward. But it doesn't mean that you have to be like that. So when you go into a conversation thinking, oh yeah, I'm unconfident, I'm bad at speaking, I'm not that good at social interaction, how exactly do you think you're gonna be? You're probably not gonna be that good in that social interaction. Your body language is probably gonna be off a little bit in that case. You're probably not going to speak as slow and as confident as you normally would have. You probably would be rushing because you think that what you're saying doesn't really matter at all. This is what happens when you have bad self-image. You see, what you believe about yourself is directly reflected in the way that people treat you and see you. Because 90% of communication is actually up here. And when you master this, you can master this. Because when you respect yourself and when you see what you're saying is actually important, other people pick up on those signs. They pick up on the body language. They pick up on the specific inflection and cadence of the way that you speak. All of these different techniques, it all starts up here before you can make any progress in actually improving your speech. You need to make sure that your mind is in the right place. So if you update your self-belief to be, oh yeah, I'm a charismatic person, I enjoy talking to people. Naturally, the more you tell yourself that every single day, and the more that you give yourself experiences that actually reinforce that, then naturally, you'll actually become a lot more like that. Because our brain is constantly going to be looking for things that reinforce what we already believe. So if you believe that you're a really confident person and that what you're saying is really important and that people like you and respect you when you speak, naturally, when you go throughout life and when you have these different experiences, your brain is going to be looking for examples that prove that. And then naturally, you'll build up that experience that actually has proof that makes you think that, okay, well, I'm actually pretty confident. I'm pretty good at speaking. That's what's actually going to create the change in your self-image. Now, outside of that and changing your beliefs, another thing that's really helped my self-image is just personal development and actually being able to create progress in my life in different areas, not just in my speaking. Because once you develop yourself in multiple different ways, whether it's your fitness, whether it's your career or school, whatever it is that you're doing, maybe you're an athlete and you get really, really good at what you're doing, naturally, your self-image is going to go up because you start to respect yourself. And one of the things that helped me a lot to be able to actually improve my self-image was making promises to myself and actually fulfilling those promises. So this will be things like waking up at a specific time or getting this assignment done on this day or whatever it was that I needed to do. And once you start building that proof by actually keeping those promises to yourself, that's something that will help you to overall build your self-image because you're constantly making progress and you know that you can trust yourself deep down. And when you can trust yourself, other people can trust you. And that bleeds into your communication because when you speak as a person who is grounded in who they are and knows their own worth. Now, when you master your self-image and when you master your self-belief, naturally, you're going to speak with a lot more conviction. Now, this might be something that will take time, but in order for you to practice this, one thing that you need to do is to speak as if whatever you're saying is the most important thing ever. Now, this might seem a little bit over the top for some people. If you're someone who already has a pretty healthy self-image and you speak pretty well and you don't really have issues with people interrupting you, then this advice maybe not be the best because it's going to make you come off as a little bit cocky. But especially if you're someone who was like me and you saw yourself as not even here, but here compared to other people, what feels like or what would feel like an overcorrection for other people is actually just a natural correction for you. So, in your head, whenever you're talking, think to yourself, this thing that I'm saying is super important and I can't wait for these people to hear what I'm going to say. Don't think about it in the sense where you're like, these people have to hear what I say or else I'm in trouble. No. Think about it like, I'm really excited to share this information, and that enthusiasm will bleed into your speech. And naturally, if you're enthusiastic about what you're saying, other people will be enthusiastic about it too. And they'll take what you're saying more seriously. You see, when I was younger, I used to struggle with this because I would have times where I would say a story, for example, and at the start of telling the story, I would think to myself, oh man, I better wrap this up soon because I don't think they're going to be very interested in what I'm saying. And then naturally, when I would tell the story, I would be a little bit less enthusiastic. I'll be rushing. I'll be trying to get it over with. But I would actually be surprised because I would see people listening to the story. I'd be like, why are they listening to me? They shouldn't be listening to me. And even though they were interested, I would still rush anyway. And it would make the story a lot less engaging. But whenever I would start a story and go like, oh, this is something that's actually really, really funny. I'm excited and I'll be enthusiastic about the story. Naturally, people would also feel the same way because they feel the energy behind the voice. Again, it's all here. If you're able to master the way that you actually feel about the things that you're saying, naturally, people will appreciate it more. So essentially what I'm saying is to take the belief of whatever it is behind your words that you're saying up to like here, to the point where you can't even see my hand on the screen. Get it to the point where you really, really care about what you're saying. Now, don't get it to the point where you care about it so much that you get into just a complete meltdown anytime that someone interrupts you. We'll get into how to handle that in a second. But this is how you prevent it from happening in the first place. Because when you speak soft-spoken and speak in a way that is just lacking conviction, people won't want to listen to you and they'll feel an invitation to interrupt. But when you do this, you will have people engaged and actually wanting to hear what you're going to say next. Now, don't take this too far. Now, if you're someone who doesn't really struggle with this, you already know that people care about what you're going to say and you're really enthusiastic about the words that you're saying and you're still getting interrupted, it might be because you're rambling. So some people might end up thinking that whatever they're saying is super, super important, and they take that way too far and they talk for 10 minutes in a 30-second conversation, or what should have been a 30-second conversation. And naturally, the people will get really, really bored when you're speaking, and they will want to interrupt you because they're like, this story is going on too long. We need to wrap this up. I need to go somewhere. I'm bored out of my mind because I have TikTok brain. You see, when you talk, if you're succinct, instead of being like that, where you're just rambling because you have a little bit too much belief in what you're saying, then naturally people will actually want to hear what you're saying. So don't overdo it whenever you're telling a story or making a point or explaining something. Just get to the point. So don't do it out of anxiety though. That's the only thing that I will say. If you do it out of anxiety of being interrupted, then people won't interrupt you because they will pick up on that anxiety when you speak. But if you do it out of respect for the people that you're speaking to, going like, yeah, what I'm saying is really, really important, but I also respect you and I also don't want to waste your time, then naturally that will actually help them to want to hear what you're going to say next, because they can get the information that you're saying, what's really engaging or that's really exciting or interesting or scary or whatever the emotion is behind what you're saying, but they get it in a reasonable amount of time. So what is a reasonable amount of time? It's just going to depend on the situation. Just try not to include any sentences in your speech that don't actually add any value. So just be aware of this in your conversations. Think about, okay, did I say something there that really wasn't that important? Did I include a detail in that story that, I was in my SpongeBob underwear and it wasn't really very useful to the story? Then maybe you can cut that out the next time. So this is something that will take time, but if you're consciously aware of it, you will make way more progress than the person who's just passively speaking and just not really thinking about this. Now, if you want to also improve your speaking skills and command the attention of any room that you speak to, especially if you're an introvert, click the top link in the description. I have a free program that will help you with that. And you can also work with me one-on-one if you would like. Now, outside of that, let's actually talk about how you can actually handle being interrupted when you're speaking instead of just preventing it. Because these tips will help you prevent most interruptions, but naturally, it will happen. And the first thing is, well, most of the time, don't take it too seriously. It happens. What you're saying is important, but in some cases, it's completely fine if it does happen. But if this is a repeated issue, then I like to handle it with something I like to call casual confrontation. Because a lot of the time, when you hear advice about being assertive online, a lot of the time, they tell you to do stuff that it works. Yes, it would work if you did do it, but it would feel a little bit awkward, especially if you're kind of new to confrontation, if you're someone who's a bit more shy, a bit more of that person that's more of the pushover like I was when I was younger. And it would be in a way that just doesn't feel like it would feel natural in a conversation. So say someone interrupts you and you go like, hey, I don't appreciate you doing that. And it's like, yeah, it worked, but now you look a little weird. It just feels kind of awkward. So the way that I like to do it is with casual confrontation. So what exactly is casual confrontation? Essentially, it's calling someone out for doing something that you don't like or for interrupting you in this case, but just doing it in a way that isn't attacking them and making it so that it just feels natural in the conversation without it being some big, hey, I don't like that you did that kind of moment. So what would this actually look like in conversation? Because I think an example would be a lot more helpful for you. So say I'm telling a story and I'm midway through the story and someone interrupts me. And of course, I'm being succinct in my storytelling and I'm being enthusiastic behind what I'm saying. So I'm doing everything that I can to stop this from happening. Someone just fixates on some random detail and then starts trying to go on a tangent. I'll just casually go like, hey, can I finish my story real quick? And they go like, yeah, sure. And I go like, okay, cool. And then I keep talking. Literally, that's it. You don't have to overthink it. It's so calm. It's really not that hard. You just say it with a smile or with whatever emotion you were feeling when you were talking. Just go like, hey, wait 1 second. Can I finish this real quick? That's it. That's all you have to do. Or, okay, can I quickly finish my point? No problem. This helps in so many different situations because I used to think that being assertive meant that you have to be this over-the-top kind of mean guy whenever you stand up for yourself. Standing up for yourself, you can do it in a chill way. You don't have to overthink it and overdo it and really be all mean or whatever it is that you think that you might be. When you do it like this, people will respect you more. People always respect you more for standing up for yourself. But if you do it like this, it just makes it a lot more natural and doesn't mess up the flow of the conversation in an awkward way. I found that this, especially as someone who did grow up more introverted, more shy in the, I guess, traditional sense of what people think being an introvert was. And that helped me so much because it made it so that there was a lot less friction. Now, eventually, you might actually have to put on that, hey, actually, please let me speak. Because sometimes you might have to be talking to someone who will repeatedly try to interrupt you. Now, you only bring out that assertive, like, hey, don't do this, like with your hand going like this and everything like that and being all, what word would I use here? Firm with them. You only do that when it's a repeated issue. So casual confrontation will not fix an issue that's happening over time. You do have to eventually put your foot down. I would normally give 3 strikes. So first time you just go like, hey, can you let me finish real quick? And then we can get back to that. And then you let that slide. Second time, hey, I'm almost done with the story. It's all good, bro. Third time, then that's when you go like, hey, dude, please don't interrupt me. I want to get this out real quick. That's when you can use the traditional advice about assertiveness. So naturally, this is going to be something that might take a little bit of time for you to adjust to, especially if you're someone that's just used to being a bit of a pushover, but it will help you so much in your communication. Think about casual confrontation. Do it with a smile if you were smiling beforehand, or just a chill, casual, just normal way of speaking in a way that just makes it short. Now, other times, you might not actually want to mess up the flow of the conversation by going like, hey, like, can you let me finish real quick? Because maybe the other person is talking really loud and it might not actually stop them from speaking. And in those cases, sometimes you just gotta keep talking. You just gotta keep doing it. Because eventually, if you are already speaking, they will notice the fact that they just interrupted you and they'll go like, wait, like we're both talking at the same time. This is a little crazy. So this is a little bit more of an action that might ruffle some feathers, but sometimes you gotta do it. And it's completely fine to just continue talking when the other person interrupts you. This will be something like a situation where maybe they're not talking directly to you, but maybe they're talking to the group or something like that whenever you're midway through your talking point or through your speech or through your story or whatever. You just keep talking. If they're talking directly to you and you just keep talking, then that's kind of weird and kind of awkward. But if you're in a group setting, I find that this is really, really useful, because then they kind of realize that they're being a bit mean and they go like, okay, wait, hold on. Let me let them finish and then I'll come back into what I'm going to say. And then eventually, if you keep talking and then they keep talking still, and then both of you are kind of in a stalemate where both of you are still talking, then you can use the casual confrontation there. But you will have to, call them over and go like, hey, like, let me finish real quick, bro. But generally, these will help. So I want to leave you with an actionable step that you can actually use in your next conversation so that you can actually improve on your speech and preventing people from interrupting you. So firstly, the self-image thing should be a given. So if you don't already see yourself as the kind of person that's here with everyone else instead of being here, you might need to do a little bit of soul searching and actually like look deep inside and go like, is this actually how I feel about other people? Maybe journal about it and actually look deep inside to see if you're the kind of person that lets this happen and lets these thoughts go inside of their brain. So at least first, make sure that you get your mind and self-image right. Make sure that you're going out and doing things, improving yourself, whether it's in your fitness or whether it's in your academics or whether it's in your work or career, whatever it is, and building that self-image to the point where this won't happen in the first place. Now, in your next conversation, pick one of the speaking skills that I talked about here to actually implement into your speech. So maybe it's being more enthusiastic about what you're saying. Maybe it's being more succinct and getting to the points. Maybe it's casual confrontation. If you know that there's someone that's going to interrupt you and you know that you can just go like, hey, can you let me finish real quick, bro? Do that. Or maybe it's just continuing to speak if they try and steer the group conversation away from what it is that you're saying. But pick one of the things and focus on that in your next conversation today. So outside of that, I hope this helped. If you need any help with improving your speaking skills, again, you can click the top link in the description and I will help you personally with that. But outside of that, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And remember, don't overthink it, because you're probably a lot better at speaking than you think that you are. Have a good one.